Hello, everybody. So I am so excited to show you what I'm doing today. Today I am working on a new Geode Resin piece. And the color scheme of this one is going to be like a couple different dark greens, gold, and black. What I'm doing it on, this is a 20 by 20 inch framed whitewashed wood panel. I got it from Hobby Lobby. Doesn't carry them anymore. I got it from there on sale like a while back when they were trying to get rid of the last of them because they were no longer going to be selling them anymore. Before I move on to anything further, I want to protect this wood frame with painter's tape with some green frog tape. My sides are covered and protected. So now I can get started with the fun part. The first thing I'm going to do is place my all my crushed glass and my fire glass and get all of that down. I drew out exactly where I wanted my crushed glass sections to be. And so that's what all these markings are for. I'm using a few different kinds of crushed glass. My main type of fire glass I use and will be using today is by Celestial Fire Glass. It's Diamond Starlight non-reflective 1/4 inch clear fire glass. This is what the container looks like. This is a close-up of what the fire glass itself looks like. That will be my main type of glass. Since this piece will have gold in it, I am also going to be using some gold fire glass, and I will show you that as well. So I'm not going to use as much of this as I'm using of the clear, but I want to give it some more depth, and so that'll help with that. What will also help with that is the type of crushed glass I will be using first, which is this crushed mirror glass. This isn't the container it came in. This is a separate one that I put it into. The reason for using the mirror glass is that when it is placed underneath the fire glass, it acts as a shadow and it helps create a lot of depth. And so I'm putting the mirror glass on the board first, and then that will end up being completely covered up by the clear fire glass. Okay. And then now we cover that with the clear glass. Basically, you'll just pile that on top. I don't recommend adding too thick of a layer of fire glass at this stage because I think it's better to build up the volume of it in layers rather than just make it super thick and high and right away, because the resin that you drizzle on it to attach it needs to be able to reach all the way down to whatever surface it is that you're putting it on. And if you and be able to touch the glass on the way. And if you add way too much fire glass right away, then it's going to be way harder to get it all attached, and you're going to end up with a bunch of loose pieces, and it's going to be really, really unstable. So I added up, I built up the volume of my fire glass in a few different layers, like at least 2, but this one I think I built it up gradually in like 3 different layers. Next, I will be using resin to attach my fire glass pieces. This brand, Art Resin, is the only brand that I will use. I highly recommend it. So there's a technique that I do when drizzling the resin over the fire glass. I first drizzle it very lightly because you don't want to pour it over your fire glass because then your fire glass will lose their shape and it'll look like they're basically drowning in resin. And you don't want that. You want your glass pieces to stay sharp basically and maintain their shape. You don't want to lose that. And so I very lightly drizzle it over the fire glass, first going in like drizzling horizontally and then vertically to try and make sure I get all the fire glass. And then I also go around the edges like I'm doing now and create basically a perimeter with the resin, because when that dries, it will help keep my colored resin from seeping underneath my fire glass. And if you have any drips, then just smooth those out with your finger. Okay, so my fire glass pieces are attached. My resin is cured. And so today's objective is to attach my quartz crystal points, which I will show you. These are my quartz crystal points that I have. They're genuine. Not only am I going to attach those, but there's something else that I haven't showed you. My best friend, Lene, her mom lives, I don't know where exactly, but I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and I know her mom lives like an hour and a half away from here, also Missouri, and she has like a farm or some land or something. Anyway, my friend found a couple of geodes one day at her house and broke them open, and she saved all the smaller, like broken off pieces and chunks for me. Gave them to me because she said that she figured I'd probably want to do something artsy with them, which she was absolutely correct about that. And so I have those right here, and I'm totally going to add some within some of the fire glass, and I'll show you what some of these pieces look like. They're so sparkly. I've got a bunch of those. I was also considering possibly using some of these drusies. These I just got at Michael's though. They are natural quartz crystals, but they have some sort of metallic material artificially adhered to the surface, which creates this iridescence that hopefully you can see on camera. But the unaltered drusies don't have that iridescence. They're super sparkly because they just reflect light, but these, because of that thin surface coating, these refract the light, and so that's what causes that iridescence. Now I am hot gluing my quartz crystal points in clusters within the fire glass, and I'm hot gluing them first, but in a little bit I will come back and drizzle some more resin over them to set them in place permanently so that they can't pop off. Then once those are hot glued, I like to add some more fire glass around the base of the quartz points to tuck them in place a little bit more. And that close-up shows an example of that. And then I also ended up adding some of the really small geode pieces within my quartz points, and I really like the way that that looks. I'm ready to move on to pouring my colored resin, and so I will show you guys what colors I am using. The first color is Imperial Emerald by Meyspring. It's a mica powder. Next, I am using, it is a dark green acrylic ink by Daler Rowney. Then I've got another mica powder, which is Gilded Gold, also by Meyspring. I'm going to use Oxide Black acrylic ink by Amsterdam. And I am undecided if this is going to have white in it or not. So I'll let you know. By the way, if you are interested in any of the materials that I use for geode art, then you can find them all in the geode art list of my Amazon shop, and I've included a link to my Amazon shop down below in the description. So that dark green acrylic ink that I picked out ended up not working out like I thought it would. First of all, it was way too transparent, and that was the main issue. But I also just didn't like the color itself. So I ended up adding a couple more colors and a pigment or two in my pattern in with it. But that ended up making it way bluer than I wanted, and it also made it way more opaque and stand out more than the Imperial Emerald color, which is my primary color in this piece. And so I definitely wanted it to stand out more than the secondary color. And so I tried to just kind of make it work. But I still didn't like how blue that secondary color was and how it just stood out so much more than the Imperial Emerald color. And so this is the next day. I've let it dry and I re-poured that Imperial Emerald, and I thought that I would try white over that instead as my secondary color, and for some reason thought maybe that dark green would look better on top of white, but I'm not sure why I thought that, because it didn't look good before with the white base on it. I don't know, but it ended up looking terrible, and you'll see it in a second. And so I let it dry again. I leave it alone, let it dry again. And then now I mixed up a new pigment, also by Meyspring. It's called Mystic Opal, and it's really pretty. It's kind of like a color shifting metallic-y type color, and it's got a lot of depth to it. And so I do end up sticking with that as my secondary color, and now I'm just going to continue to build up the layers and all of the details. This one is Dazzling Diamond by Meyspring. The way the color looks in person is exactly what you would expect from the name Dazzling Diamond. To use up the rest of my resin that I had already mixed up, I combined all of the different colors into one cup and am now pouring some lines with that because having all those different colors in there creates some really neat looking striations. My colored resin has fully cured, so next I'm going to take some of that Gilded Gold and mix it with some of this Dianka Gloss varnish. And using a paintbrush, I'm going to fill in that gold that's around the edges of my fire glass a little bit better. Now I'm going to add some glitter lines, and for this I'm going to use both chunky and extra fine gold glitter, mix them together with resin, and then put them inside of this syringe and make my lines with that to keep them really precise. But just a side note, I do end up cutting that tip off of the plastic syringe. And so you want it to be really, really thick because that is, I mean, as thick as you can while making it thin enough to be able to squeeze out of the syringe, out of the tip of the syringe. But it has to be really thick. So you don't want to add too much resin because if you do, then the lines are going to spread out and get a little wider once you apply them. And that's not usually something that you want. What I'm showing you now is the lines that I added with paint marker, but unfortunately you won't be able to watch that process because due to technical difficulties, I lost that footage, so my apologies. But I use Posca paint marker to add them, and you can also find those in my Amazon shop. I think right here I'm going to add a few more of those quartz points because I feel like that one spot that's not connected to any of the other lines just looks kind of awkward. I also went ahead and built up a lot more volume to my crystals and fiberglass. So this is the before and after of that. I'll show it to you again. Before looks really flat in the before, and then after it looks a lot more full. So I need to drizzle more resin over all of the loose crystals and fiberglass one last time to make sure they are fully secured. And then after this, while the resin is still wet, is the part I've honestly been most excited to tell you guys about. This is glitter glass from DiankaPours.com, and it is absolutely essential to use when creating geode art. And the way I use it is once I'm done building up the last of my fiberglass, and after I drizzle resin over it to secure it, while the resin is still wet, I sift this over the wet resin. And because you are drizzling it over wet resin, you don't have to do anything else to secure it. In fact, you don't want to drizzle more resin over it, because then that'll take away the reflectiveness of it. But this is before adding the glitter glass, and this is after. Do you see how much of a difference it is? Using this just really elevates your piece, and it makes your crystals and your fiberglass pieces look absolutely flawless, and it brings so much life into your piece. I cannot stress that enough. So if you create geode art and you really want to elevate your work, I'm telling you, use glitter glass. You won't be able to get all of this sparkle and shimmer and just dazzling reflectiveness from the fiberglass alone. And you can use my code FluidExpressions10 to get 10% off of your order on her site. I will include the link down below at the bottom. And pay attention to this next part because I don't want you guys to waste your time like I did at first. I first learned about glitter glass from one of Dianka Pours' YouTube videos, but at the time, I didn't want to spend the money on it. And so I went and bought this stuff, this diamond dust stuff, which was much cheaper, and you get like a ton of it, and used it in this, my very first resin geode, because I thought that it would be, it would give me the same effect for cheaper. Do you see any sparkle? Because I sure don't. So, and I used it, okay, I saw like the tiniest bit, but I used a lot of it, and the exact same way as the Dianka Pours glitter glass, and you don't get that sparkle with with that. So I hate cliches, but this just shows that you really do get what you pay for. And I was kind of curious why the Dianka Pours glitter glass is so much more reflective and effective. And the main difference I noticed between the two was the size of the little pieces of glitter glass. The cheaper stuff, the pieces are so much smaller, like basically the same size as regular glitter. Um, Not much bigger than that size at all. However, the Dianka Pours one, the pieces are quite a bit larger, and they also appear to be much thinner. And so after noticing that difference, it makes a lot of sense why light bounces off of the Dianka Pours glitter glass a lot better than the cheaper version. It may seem like a small difference, but it's a small difference that has a really big impact on the final result. So don't do what I did. Don't waste your money trying to get around buying the slightly more expensive product by thinking you can get away with the same effect for cheaper. Because that's what I did, and I was really disappointed. So I learned my lesson. nothing will elevate your geode art like this stuff will. Having, you know, the wow that I get from people when I show them the sparkle that's in the fire glass, it feels really good, and it looks really, really good. So DiankaPours.com, and again, you can use my code FluidExpressions10 to get 10% off your entire purchase, not just the glitter glass, but anything you buy from her site. So I will include the website link and my discount code in the description below the video. So before doing my final flood coat, I went ahead and removed that frog tape from the border because I wanted to see if there were any imperfections or any issues with it that needed to be fixed. Because if so, then I want to do that before pouring my final flood coat. Well, I'm glad I did that because there are a few places where the resin did seep under a little bit. And also, what you're seeing right now is where there's some like paint marker and also some colored resin that got up on the side right there. And I don't want that. So fixing those parts is going to require sanding. I don't want to get resin and wood dust all over the fiberglass pieces, especially, and over just the entire piece in general. And so to protect it, I covered the whole thing with press and seal wrap, which worked really, really, really well. And then around where the fire glass was, I taped it down with frog tape just to make sure that it stayed on good. And then it required a couple pieces and so of a couple strips of the press and seal wrap. So I taped it in the middle to again make sure that there was a really good seal. So I'm feeling really good about how protected all of this is. And if you can't tell, I'm outside with it because I don't want to get sawdust and resin dust all over my studio. And so I figured it was just best to take it outside to do this. After sanding down the bulk of it with the first attachment, I switched to this one because it has a much finer grit, and it allowed me to get into much tighter like spaces with ease. And then this is the after, and it looks so much more cleaned up and so much better. Look at that. That's such a big difference. And one of my main gripes before I cleaned all this up was that green that you can see that I tried for one of my colors but didn't end up sticking with. You could still see that on like that inner edge, and that really looked bad because it didn't match any other colors that you could see in the finished piece. And so yeah, it looks much better and cleaned up and stuff now, and I'm really happy with it. The only thing left to do now is to pour my final flood coat of resin to give the piece that smooth glass-like finish. It's always important to make sure all the air bubbles are removed from your resin or even your paint. But when doing your final flood coat, it's even more critical than usual. So you want to make sure to stay with your piece after you're done spreading out your final flood coat and babysit it for 15-20 minutes at least, to just watch for hairs getting in it and to keep popping those air bubbles, because they will keep rising to the top for a little while. And then I did this to protect it during the curing process from any dust particles or anything else that could possibly land on it. First of all, I just want to say I am really happy with how this turned out. And I know this was a longer video, it's the longest one I've ever published, but it was a really long process, especially in real life. But thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I would love to know your opinions and feedback, and any other thoughts you might have in the comments below. And don't forget to check the video description for those links that I mentioned earlier. Also, if you like my work or enjoy my videos, then please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button, because it really helps me out. Okay, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.